I knew that there was a big shift coming for me, and I didn't know what it was. And this this is what it means to live on faith, you guys. This is what it means to live on faith. And living on faith is you living in uncertainty. It's uncertain. You don't know what's next. You don't know where you're going to go. You don't know where you're going to be, but you have to have faith that the plan will align and that the pieces will fall into place. And I have had this happen to where I literally did not have a new location lined up. That alignment was so beautiful. It was so beautiful, but it happened 7 days before they were to set to leave.
Hello, my loves. This is Johanna Burkhardt. I am a multidimensional channel, teacher, healer, and author. And I am obsessed with all things metaphysical, esoteric, galactic, and of course, the healing journey. And I'm here to share my stories, my wisdom, and my teachings about being human in the illusion that we call reality. Welcome to Cosmic Blonde.
Hello, my loves. I am excited to talk this week because I have moved locations once again. The gypsy life is not quite complete. And let's be honest, I don't think it will ever be fully complete. I have just come to terms with the fact that I have a gypsy soul. And it's ironic because I remember traveling towards the end, the end of last year, beginning of 2023. I remember just really craving stability, really craving to be rooted, and really getting, I was just over house sitting, because that's how I did it. For those of you who don't know, on my nomadic journey, I house sat. I used an app called Trusted House Sitter. And you basically pick a state or a city or even a country, and you apply to house sit. And that became my home base. Like, you were in exchange, you were watching their animals, which most people had animals. Some people will have you house sit with no animals, but you would take care of their animals in their home while they're gone, and you have a free place to stay. And it's such an awesome service. And it's like $120 a year. It's amazing. But that's what I did. I house sat. And I mean, I did other things. I camped, I got Airbnbs, I got hotels. I slept in my car. Like, there's lots of things that I did, but the house sitting was the major one. But I was literally moving my life, every 2 to 4 weeks. I was packing up my suitcases, packing up my kitchen stuff, loading up my car, going to the next location, unpacking everything. And that was the part that was exhausting. It was like, you literally are carrying your baggage. You ever hear someone say, like, you're carrying a lot of emotional baggage? I was carrying a lot of physical baggage, and I still didn't have a lot of stuff, yet it was a lot, because I had 3 suitcases, and then I had 2 boxes, one that had my food and one that had, other miscellaneous things. I carried with me my Vitamix and my electric tea kettle. These are things that I use on an everyday basis. So it gets tiring. And I remember going, God, I just want to be rooted in one location. And it's not that I ever wanted to quit traveling. It's just that I wanted a home base. I wanted to have roots and wings. And sometimes you have to work up to that. Sometimes you have wings or roots, right? And then it's balance that gives you both. It's finding your balance that allows for both. And so, as I've talked about in other episodes, I believe it was February of 2023 of this year, I went back home to San Diego, and my intention was to get rooted. I needed to get health insurance in one location. I had some procedures that I needed to have done. I wanted to be rooted. And I was there for 9 months, and I really thought I wasn't going to leave again. In fact, I had so many of my friends, my OG friends, that I've known for 20 plus years, some even longer than that, some since I, was a child, kept asking me, are you staying for good? Are you staying for good? Like, we'd have events, or we'd go out to eat, or we'd see each other, and they're like, well, are you staying for good? And I kept saying, yes, like, that's the plan. This is the plan. It's to stay for good. It's to be able to find a place to live on my own, preferably, and live my best life in the city with the most beautiful weather year round. It just is. There's a reason why California or San Diego, there's a reason why San Diego costs, not just an arm and a leg, but both arms and both legs to live there, because the weather is gorgeous. And I don't know, I had such a deeper appreciation for it this time. Anyway, I could feel, let me backtrack. In September, I flew to North Carolina, and then I flew to Texas. And I spent a couple of weeks. I think I spent a week actually in each location, maybe a little longer. And I could feel the finality of North Carolina. Literally, I knew the chances of me coming back were slim to none. And if I did, it was not going to be in the same capacity that I was going there before. And I cleared out my storage. Like I have very little left in North Carolina. I have in my ex-husband's house, I have a few boxes. I probably have 6 boxes, and most of them are photos. And they're really heavy, and I couldn't take them on the plane. So it's going to be something where I'm going to have boxes mailed to me slowly over time. But I cleaned everything else out. I literally got rid of whatever remained. And then I went to Texas to see family, chosen family. And I could just feel this weight when I was in Texas. I could feel this weight lifted off of me from letting go of everything in North Carolina. And I really got to enjoy my time in Texas. But I knew before I even left, the few weeks before I even left to take these flights, I knew that there was a big shift coming for me. And I didn't know what it was. And this is what it means to live on faith, you guys. This is what it means to live on faith. And living on faith is you living in uncertainty. It's uncertain. You don't know what's next. You don't know where you're going to go. You don't know where you're going to be, but you have to have faith that the plan will align and that the pieces will fall into place. And I have had this happen to where I literally did not have a new location lined up. And when I was leaving, when did this happen? This actually happened quite a few times, but the last time I remember, the big time that happened where it kind of caught my attention, I was like, whoa, this was cutting it close, was in San Diego. I was living with chosen family for 4 months, helping them with their twins and just reconnecting with them, right? They were moving to Texas, ironically, go figure. And they literally were leaving the end of that week. And I had less than a week to find a place to go. And I didn't. And San Diego, let me rephrase that. San Diego is a really hard place, a challenging place to get a house sit long term. Now, you could probably get a house sit for a couple of days, maybe a week. I landed a 2-month house sit in downtown San Diego in a prime location. I could literally walk through downtown to go to the water. It was like 15 minutes to the beach. It was an excellent location. That alignment was so beautiful. It was so beautiful, but it happened 7 days before they were set to leave. And I think it might've even been shorter than that. It just literally, I was like, I was starting to stress a little bit and panic. And I was like, I can't find a house sit. And then I opened the app one day. We're sitting there and I just opened the app and boom, there it was. And it was a last minute. Someone else had booked it and someone else applied and they accepted that person. That person canceled. And so they had just put it back on the app. And I was the first one that applied and I got it. And it was perfect alignment. And so I've had things like that happen multiple times. So here we are, September, and the end of, when was it? The middle of August, I left that house sit and I stayed with my friend Ashley for a few weeks. And during those weeks, that's when I could feel it. I could feel I didn't know where I was supposed to go. I didn't have anything really lining up. And even when I did line something up, it didn't feel 100% aligned. Now, I will, in all transparency, I did set that up. I did accept that offer and I did take it. But I I had this knowing, right? My intuition, my knowing deep down, my soul was like, this ain't it, girl. This ain't it. You can do it. It's not going to hurt you, necessarily. It's just going to be a choice that you make. And I kind of knew it would be one that, it just wasn't aligned. It wasn't the right place for me. But for whatever reason, I felt the need to take it. So there was obviously a lesson, and I do know now what that lesson was. That's for another episode. But I had something lined up. But I knew even through all my traveling, I'm rambling a little bit, but I knew even through all my traveling that there was something bigger coming to me. So even though I came back to San Diego at the end of September. I moved to the place, the offer that I accepted, and I lived my best life for like 7 weeks, I think. It was great, but I'm not going to get into why it didn't work out, but it didn't. But I knew within probably 2 weeks that there was, again, that overwhelming feeling like something's coming for me. And I want to stop here and read this quote. I don't follow a lot of other spiritual influencers, leaders, way showers, whatever name you want to call them. But I rarely listen to other people's stuff on a regular basis, mainly just so that I'm not influenced by what they're saying. But every now and then, Kyle Cease, for those of you who don't know who he is, he's a former comedian. He still thinks he's kind of funny. I don't think he's as funny as he used to be. That's neither here nor there. But Kyle Cease, former actor, former comedian, turned spiritual influencer, for lack of a better term, and author, put out some content. And I don't remember if it was a podcast he was on or just if it was a short video. I think it was a podcast. But he said this quote, and I'm going to read it. And I had to pause and write it down because I was like, this explains living on faith so well. And what it takes to live on faith, right? And how your mind works. So here's the quote. When you let go or lose something, the reason why you stress about it is because your mind can measure what it's losing, but it can't see what it's going to gain. Like, listen to that again. When you're letting go or losing something, the reason why you stress about it is because your mind can measure what it's losing, but it can't see what it's gaining. Like, mind blown. Like, that is a perfect summary, because that's what happens every time. Even now, every time I'm coming to a natural ending and a new beginning, right? The death rebirth cycle. We have so many of those that happen all the time. But when I'm coming to a natural ending in a location or a situation or a relationship, I always feel it coming, always. And while my psychic abilities and my intuitive gifts have not always served my own evolution, they're not really supposed to. People always ask me, especially when I'm dating, guys always like, well, do you tell your own future? Like, why have you been married 3 times if you're psychic? You know what I mean? And I remember Sylvia Brown even addressed this because she was married, I think, more than 3 times. We are meant to have a human life and lessons the same as everybody else. And so that means we have to be blind to a lot of our own shit. But at the same time, we will still, right, have this knowing, this intuition, this feeling. And that's what you're meant to follow. You're meant to follow the feeling. And this feeling was like, oh, this thing's coming. But my biggest challenge that I've had to work to continuously overcome over the years is surrender. And the best way I can describe surrender is giving up what you want for what's meant for you. That's the most basic way I can explain surrender. It's like your ego and inner child want something for you. And sometimes you can even tap into what your soul wants. But for most of us, our ego and our inner children are very loud about our desires and what we want, right? Like, you've seen a child throw a tantrum. When they don't get their way, they're fucking pissed. Well, we adults get the same way. You don't want to know why? Because we're multidimensional and we have a whole collective of inner children inside of us who are throwing tantrums when they don't get their fucking way. And we just need to be real about it. It happens to all of us. It's how we respond to that feeling that shifts everything. And so that has been one of my lessons that I have continuously had to have experience in, because I get very stubborn in the way that I want to see my life. I want my life to look a certain way. I want it to unfold a certain way. Who doesn't? And when it doesn't, I get mad and I get frustrated. Now I'm a little better with it, and I tend to let go a lot faster and go, okay, this is what we got to do. This is where we got to go. And it was the same thing with this knowing. I had this knowing that I was moving. I had this knowing I was moving. And it wasn't just one place. There was two different places that were coming up. Well, let's be real, three, because Texas is always coming up for me. Texas is a place that I will one day probably root down in Texas. I'm just going to be honest. It's probably going to happen. But so Texas is never off the table for me. But there was two other places, Michigan and that house sit in downtown San Diego. The owners, I became close with the owners, and they had said that if they leave to travel again, that I could rent that space for $500 a month. Now, mind you, the rents in that location are $3,500 to $4,000, sometimes even more. But this unit, they probably could have got easily $3,000 for this unit, or maybe even 2,500. But they were going to give it to me for $500 a month, and I was like, yes. Well, she ended up getting diagnosed with breast cancer. She is going to be okay, but it didn't work out, right? And so I was fighting against coming to Michigan the same way I was fighting against going to San Diego in February, because I had this vision for my life. It's supposed to look like this. This is what it's supposed to look like. And it's not looking like that. And I don't want to do that. And I didn't want to leave San Diego. I'm just going to be honest. I didn't want to leave San Diego. It's gorgeous weather. I love palm trees. I love salt water. I love being in nature every damn day. And the only place you can really do that for the most part is San Diego. Year round, you can be outside. So, and I had my friends back, and I had somewhat of a life, and I felt very happy and balanced there. But there was still this knowing that I needed to move on, that I needed to not be there anymore. And I can only reflect on this quote that I had mentioned a minute ago and say this. I fought to go to San Diego, one, because of how expensive it is. Two, I wasn't sure that I would be reaccepted into my old friends group, because I'm so different. I have grown and evolved into a completely different person than I was in 2013 when I originally left. They all know that, but to see it from afar on social media and then be around it in person, I have big energy. I turn the light up on a lot of things. So it's not always, for people who are not close to my frequency, it can sometimes be a lot to be around me. I'm going to amplify things that a lot of times people don't want to see. And I will warn people, like when I move in with somebody, I always usually warn them, like, listen, I turn the light up a little bit, sometimes a lot of bit. And so if there's cracks or crevices in your life, you're going to see them with me here. And it's not like I'm doing anything purposely. It's just something that I have witnessed happened enough times to know that that's the way it goes. I mean, honestly, I could probably make this a service. Be like, you want to know what's going on, where your cracks are in your life? Let me move in for a few weeks. I will shine a big old light on it. And again, it's not ever coming from a malicious place. It's just a natural thing that happens. So anyway, we had these two locations. San Diego ended up falling through because of her breast cancer. And so I was fighting to come to Michigan. One, because I loathe the cold. I don't like wearing a lot of clothes. I feel suffocated. And so I am a yoga pants sports bra kind of girl. I am a shorts and sports bra kind of girl. I am someone who does not like wearing a lot of clothes. And here, if you don't want to die, yesterday it was 7 below with the real field temperature. You need to wear multiple layers. In fact, I went on a date and I wore leggings that were fleece lined. And we're sitting down and I am like, can feel my legs sweating because I was inside, right? Because I'm not outside in the snow. And I was just dying. I was like, this is too much. This is too much. How do you navigate? How do you find your balance in this weather? So I'm learning a whole lot. But anyway, so I had an offer to come to Michigan and be here, at least through the winter. There's no real timetable on it. And there's multiple reasons why coming here is good. But when I got off track a little bit. When I originally felt the urge to go to San Diego, I fought it, like I said, because of my not feeling like I might be accepted into my friends group, because of the expense. I have family there and my family brings up a lot of old things. It's where I grew up and where my dad and my childhood home are. My dad's no longer here. So there's a lot of, San Diego is a double-edged sword for me. There's a lot of pain and a lot of joy at the same time. And so my mind, all I could see was what it was going to lose. We weren't going to have the freedom that we had before. We're not going to be traveling all the time. Really, it was the dream of rooting in Texas that I was fighting letting go of, because I really thought that I was going to root down in Texas, and it just never happened. I just never could get it to come into alignment. And so it wasn't the right time. And so I had to really let go of that dream and surrender and go back to San Diego. But do you know what my mind could never have conceived me gaining? Never conceived me gaining. I became an auntie to my, what I'm going to say is my brother, his chosen brother, but he had twins, him and his beautiful wife, who's now my sister. I fell in love with these babies. And I know that sounds weird to say, but I love them so much. It's like we have soul contracts for sure. I have soul contracts with those twins. And then they have an older daughter who I absolutely adore. And I got family. I found family again, because I have a very estranged relationship with my family, what's left of them. And I have been craving that. And so I gained family. I became an auntie to babies that when they moved, I was a wreck for like 2 weeks. Oh, I could cry right now thinking about how much I miss them. I have been craving fun with other people, and I gained that. I mean, I really lived my best life in San Diego. I really did. I had so much fun. I had so much fun. There's so much that I gained that my mind could have never saw coming. Never could have saw coming. And so even though I knew that, when I felt the pull to come to Michigan, oh man, was I internally fighting it. Because I'm like, it doesn't make any sense. It makes no sense. Why would I do that? Why would I come? We're about to hit winter, a place that snows 4 to 6 months out of the year, where I can't be outside every day, where I know only a handful of people, and it's a small town where there's nothing to do. Why would I do that? I don't know. I don't know the answer to that question yet. But what I can tell you is that my mind will never be able to conceive what's possible. My mind will never be able to conceive the potential of what I can gain by being here. It just can't. It can't. And knowing that gives me peace of mind, because then I can say it's a limitless potential. And that's true. right? My guides are always telling me there are no limits, Johanna, except for the ones that you create in your mind. There is a limitless potential of what could happen here. I could meet the love of my life. I might have the space and peace to finish my next book. I may need to just connect with the land here. Like, I could find a community and a tribe that I never knew I needed. I'm definitely going to be able to live my best life with my best friend because that's who I'm living with. I mean, she's been my person. When my life went into the dumpster fire, she didn't just watch it. She got in that bitch with me. And that's how you know who your people are. And I'm not saying like she rescued me and saved me, not that she didn't help me a few times, but she got in it with me. She was there with me in the emotional turmoil, in the weakest parts of my life. She was in it with me. She sat in it with me. That's powerful. And I get to live with that person. I get to share a life with that person. And that was the cherry for me. That was the thing that was calling to me. That, and I do love me a Hallmark moment. And let's be honest, White Christmas kind of gives Hallmark vibes. But other than those things, like, I'm like, what the hell what am I doing? What am I doing? I said to myself and to her, I said, I'm either blowing up my life or I'm really realigning it. But there is opportunity here. There is potential. And so I'm super excited to watch that unfold. And that is where faith comes in. You have to believe that you came to this place or chose that person or made that decision for a reason. And yes, sometimes that reason is a lesson. Sometimes it is. God, I should know. I have literally fucked around and found out multiple times. I learn the hard way. And I don't always want to do that. And so I grow and evolve and I am getting much better at it. But sometimes sometimes that's the fastest way to where you want to be. Think about it this way. If you go to somewhere and you know you got to get from A to B, but there's no trail from A to B. There is a trail that goes around the mountain, up, down, up this side, sideways, and around. It's going to take you 5 times as long. Or you can get a machete. It might seem a little aggressive, but you can get a machete or some other tool, and you can hack the brush and create the shortcut. Is that shortcut harder? Yeah, but it's probably faster. And that's why people say the only way is through. You have to go through it. And it scared me to come up here. It scared me to move to Michigan for all the reasons I've already listed, right? Seasonal depression, not being able to be outside, not having a big friends group anymore, not having all the things that I just had. But I'm a person who, if you haven't figured it out by now, when I am afraid of something, I want to run into it because fear is the biggest block of them all. If something scares me, I'm going to do it, and I'm going to do it scared. I'm going to do it scared. The only thing I will publicly go on the record and say this, that I will never do is jump out of an airplane unless that bitch is going down. I'm sorry. It just is not happening. But other than that, if something scares me, I usually am like, I got to do this. I got to do it because I have to not be afraid of it. Because fear is an illusion. Fear is your brain saying, we've either A, never done this before, and this is dangerous, right? Because we don't know how to do it. Or B, it's fear because you have done something similar in the past and there was a negative outcome to it. It's going to be one or the other. When the reality is fear is just telling you that this is unfamiliar. This is unfamiliar. That's all fear is. This is an unfamiliar experience. So if you, it's uncomfortable. So if you live your life if you live your life in comfort, you're in a cage. You're just in a cage. You have to do uncomfortable things. You have to learn to live in a state of faith and believe in yourself, because that is what faith is, right? And I've said this before, you are an aspect of God. We all are. Everything is. Everything is God. Everyone is God. You don't need to believe in something outside of yourself. You just have to believe in yourself. That's it. And so when you go to do that unfamiliar thing, remember, it's the belief in your ability to navigate what may go right or wrong. That's the only thing you have to believe in, is your ability to navigate what may go right or wrong. Because you can spend hours stressing and worrying and trying to figure out the outcome to every possible negative thing that could happen. And a lot of people do that. I used to do that. Sometimes people call that ADHD. Some people call that neurospicy. There's a million terms we can label ourselves. I'm tired of labeling ourselves. The truth is, all you have to do is when those things come up is go, you know what? I don't know what's going to happen. I have no idea. The things that happened in San Diego, I never in a million years thought those things were going to happen, but they did. And there were some things that went wrong too that I didn't think was going to happen, but they did. And every single time I made it through. And every time you make it through something that's challenging or difficult or that had an element of fear, and you do, that's the moment when you need to stop and you go, gosh, I was afraid of this. And here I am. It might have not gone the way that you wanted, right? An expectation queen here. It may not have met your expectations, but you're standing on the other side of it. That's powerful. And it's in every moment that happens for me. I'm not perfect with this, but I try to stop and say, look at us. We fucking did it. We did it. We did the impossible. And even coming up here, you know what my biggest fear was driving up here was? The snow. I'm going to hit snow on the way up. I'm going to hit snow on the way up. What if I slide? I don't know how to drive in the snow. I've driven in the snow a few times, and it was when I owned trucks with 4-wheel drive, knowing that if I needed to, I could get out with 4-wheel drive. I don't own chains. I drive a car now. And the person I was living with, I was also partially working for. It was a live-in nanny position, part-time, and that allowed me to still run my business. When I told them, they got very upset and they got very angry, and I had to leave early. They basically were like wanted me out instead of me waiting the next 2 weeks out. I wasn't supposed to get up here until around December 2nd. And today is, I think, the 28th of November as I record this. But here's the thing. That week, because I had to leave early, I had perfect, and I mean perfect, weather the whole way. In South Dakota, it was blowing about 50, 55 miles an hour for a good part of it. But other than that, I had perfect weather. No snow on the highways, no snow falling. I was wearing tank tops and flip-flops most of the drive. It was beautiful. Beautiful. This week, different story. Snowstorms moving through. It would not have been a pleasant experience, that drive. But because everything kind of blew up and I had to leave earlier than expected, and remember, just because something looks bad doesn't mean it's not happening for you, right? So when it happened, I was like, I rarely ever fight anymore, you guys, when something breaks and when the tower happens and things blow up. Now, like, there's almost an immediate surrender that happens inside of me. And I'm just like, well, this is what we're doing now. And so when it happened, it was a little jarring, but I didn't panic. I just started packing my stuff, Next day, I got an oil change and left. And it sucked. And I just thought, you know what? This is happening for a reason. And it did. My reason was I actually got to enjoy my road trip because I am a gypsy, and traveling and getting out on a 2-lane highway in the middle of BFE and dancing in the middle of the highway. I mean, where I set up my tripod, you're not going to see a car for miles in the middle of the, at the time, I think that I did a video. I think I was on the Nevada-Utah border on a very rural highway. This is not main freeways, but it's just nothingness and it's gorgeousness. And so I'll set up my camera and I'll just record myself walking around, dancing, being in the road, doing whatever, stopping every 15 minutes to take a picture if I want. It's just so, I just love driving so much, and I love traveling so much. I wouldn't have had that experience. I would have had a white knuckled, got to get there, got to get through. It would not have been the same. So it absolutely happened for me. And it probably happened for her too, right? So we have to allow things to unfold. And so when things go wrong, when things blow up, when things break, they're happening for you, not to you. And remember, the mind only sees what it's losing. It can't conceive what it will be gaining. So I hope this episode was helpful, because this society, let's be honest, every single one of us is always living in uncertainty at some level. No matter if you have a job, a home, you're married, all of those things can be gone tomorrow. The government could shut down tomorrow. At this rate, we have no idea what's around the next curve. And that's not to scare you, but that's to say your greatest strength or your greatest thing that you can ever learn in this moment is to believe in yourself and to have faith that you will be able to navigate whatever comes your way. And to remind yourself that when things go wrong, when things break, that it's happening for you. You just don't know what it is yet. I love you guys, and I will see you next time.
Hey, thanks for listening. This episode was brought to you by JohannaBurkhardt.com, where it's time to defy the limits of your mind and step into your multidimensional mastery. Don't forget to subscribe so that you never miss an episode. See you next time.